anxiety is just a negative picture of the future. And what I've realized is that I do, especially when I am anxious about things that I can't control, is that I try to attach certainty to it by almost making up a story that I'm certain of. So I don't know if that comes in the form of pessimism or just negative expectations, but when I'm so uncertain of something, I become even more anxious because I'm like, well, this is going to happen because I need to find some sort of certainty, and the certainty usually comes in the negative case, like the worst case scenario.
Yes, so that is something that I touch on in the book because I think it's so many people, right? And you don't even, you, I think it takes real insight to know that you're doing that because I think most people think about that as like, oh, I'm struggling with this uncertainty right now. I'm anxious. And what you're pointing to is so important, which is that behind the anxiety is actually certainty. It's certainty that, oh, I'm going to definitely fail this or this bad thing
Exactly.
is going to happen. Versus if you're truly sitting in the uncertainty, you don't know what's going to happen. It could be a positive thing, it could be a negative thing, it could be something neutral. But I think a lot about that like parable of the farmer. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this parable, but it's like the all these things happen to the farmer, and people say, "Oh,
Oh,
that's
that's
great."
bad and that's good. Yes, yes,
Right.
yes.
Maybe yes, maybe no, right? And so you kind of the moral of this parable is you just never know, right? Like something happens to you, you don't know if it's good or bad. You have to kind of exist in this uncertain place. And so that's one of the reasons that, when it comes to how do we get better at living in times of uncertainty, part of it is kind of thinking about what is the question that's underlying that anxiety, and are we even aware of that question? A lot of times we're not. And B, can we ask a question that actually opens up the possibilities for what the future could hold versus something that's narrowing us into, I know this is this or that, these two things are going to happen, right? And so I'd be curious too, when you are experiencing that anxiety, is there like a question, a fundamental question behind it? And is that ever something that you've kind of thought about trying to unpack?
It's a good question on your end because it's hard for me to dive into what I'm thinking in the short term because all I like I it's funny I wrote this down, and when I was going through the worst case scenarios this week about a particular situation, the biggest thing that was coming to me is, Reach, in 6 months time it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Like, you're gonna be good. It's not like it matters in 6 months time because how many times have we looked back and be like, huh, a year ago, Reach, look where you were. So it's so easy for me to be like, hey, in 6 months time I'm gonna be over it. But it's just the short term uncertainty is like, what on earth do I do right now? Like, how do I move past this? How do I actually move past it? Especially if it's relationship wise, if it's career wise, it's so hard for me to get over that initial obstacle. But I know that in 6 months' time, there's always gonna be a light in the tunnel at the end of the tunnel.
So you're actually deploying one of these strategies that I lay out in the book, which is so powerful, which is mental time travel, right? And it's like being able to think about like something that I think about a lot is writing myself a letter or like thinking about Elizabeth 5 years ago and where she was at and the questions that she was asking. And kind of to your point, writing now from this perspective of, oh, everything was okay, and to think about how would I advise her in some of those uncertain moments. And then if you think about, yes, like you in 2 years' time, you're looking back at yourself right now, and how would you advise yourself? Like, and it doesn't have to necessarily be, okay, Rishi, you should do this and then that. But I think that what you're offering yourself, what I hear yourself offering is self-compassion, right? Of like, hey, it's going to be okay. You've handled these hard things in the past. You've navigated these hard questions in the past, and you can do it again. And so there's this, I think what's so powerful about this kind of time traveling and like writing to yourself and addressing yourself from either the future or the present or the past is you're reminded A, of the fact that you've done this a lot before, and B, you actually have the wisdom inside of you already to be able to navigate this. So I think, again, when we're thinking about those moments when we're most uncertain and we're like, I'm just going to go on social media and see what this influencer says, like, fine, maybe that does help in some ways, but ultimately you are the best source for figuring out what you're going to do next or how you're going to kind of handle that situation and how you're going to um, uh, you know, I think the I think so much of what I learned too, and kind of my own experience in writing the book, is that our relationship to uncertainty is a reflection of our relationship to ourselves, right? And so at the end of the day, how you deal with uncertainty, how you navigate it, how you're sitting with those big, deep questions is a reflection of kind of how do you regulate your own emotions, and what does that look like? And so what you're pointing to is so profound, right? It's like you're talking to yourself, you're giving yourself that support and that kind of kindness and compassion during those moments to be able to move forward and accept what you're feeling.
Yo, if you like that, then you're gonna like this, the full episode. Come on, you know you want to click it. Come on. All right, well, if you're not gonna click that, you might as well subscribe.